Morning, everyone, again. I know you're all over the world, and the opportunity I have to speak to you is just so beautiful this morning. I want to thank my son, Master Shaw, for giving me this wonderful opportunity, and thank all of you for being here to listen. So I better say something, right? I'd like to give you a little exercise that we do at our church. Now remember, I'm coming from the New Thought movement, which is certainly in alignment with your teaching, but I want to do some things that we do in my ministry since Master introduced me as to such a loving place. So I want you for just a moment, just embrace yourself. You know, we often go through life waiting for someone else to embrace us. No, don't stop. I'm tall, I can see you. Come on, embrace yourself. Good. And the reason I'm doing this is because we have to learn to love and massage ourselves. There's not always somebody around. There are people who don't have families. There are people who are feeling lost. There are people who are feeling depressed. There's so much going on. So what we're doing this morning is giving ourselves a love treatment because God is so good and the life of God is in us. So just hold yourself for a minute. Call your name. I'm going to call my name and say, I love you. Together. Barbara, I love you. Call your name. Come on. Barbara, I love you. Barbara, I love you. Now just feel that love. Now, I want you to take a moment, go to someone and give them some love quickly. The camera lady needs a little love up there. Somebody with the lady on the camera, give her some love. I hope those of you who are at home are giving yourselves a love treatment as well. What joy. It's so joyful. So joyful. Now, well, I could just do this the rest of the morning. Now, it is my prayer that those of you who are listening in are giving yourselves a love treatment. And if there's anyone in your home, also give them a love treatment. We take so much for granted, but it's so good to know that love is real and that we can express it to each other without knowing names, backgrounds, what city, what country, but to send that love energy. And it begins with you, because in order to receive love, you have to also know who you are as a loving person of God. God loves us all and God created us all, that creation. So remember to love yourself a little bit and love those around you. I grew up in a family with a father and a grandmother, and they were wonderful people, but they never hugged me. I went to a Louise Hay workshop once in Pasadena, and she said, I want everybody to see if you can remember when you got your first hug. And I started crying because in all of my childhood, I never got a hug. And I was an A student. I got gifts. My grandmother sewed. She made my clothes, and I always had something new to wear, and maybe a new desk for making an A. But my daddy was a businessman, very busy working and traveling, and so I never got a hug. And I was so thankful when I joined the unity movement, which I came through, and they were hugging people. And so I'm still a hugger, and I have an opportunity in my ministry on Sundays to hug everybody that I can hug. And sometimes I just do a hugging ceremony. I sit in our chair, and I tell everybody, when you get ready to leave, just come by and get your hug. And it's surprising how many people feel they can't hug a minister because they have been taught that you don't touch the minister, but that's in traditional churches. But in our movement, we can hug. Didn't you feel good when you got a hug this morning? How many of you felt good when you got a hug this morning? Come on, tell the truth. You know, wives don't hug husbands much anymore, but that doesn't happen here. But we want you to have the experience. Now, Master Shaw just told me last night that I would be teaching this morning, and I'm used to those kind of experiences. And so I just quietly went into my time of meditation to ask Spirit what I should talk about this morning. And to tell the truth, I got 2 topics. So I don't know which one. I think I'll start. Let me see. Check, transmission. I just love Master Shaw so much. I love when he does his healing work. Nobody can do it like Master Shaw. But I'm going to start with one. He said I had an hour or 2 hours, so I'll want to be very exciting for you. What I'm going to do is what I do in my church on Sundays. And so let me begin with the first one. And that is, the title is Follow Your Dream. You may want to take some notes, you may not. That's left up to you. Follow your dream. Say, I will follow my dream. Say it again. Now, if anybody, a dream for me is an idea, it may be a vision, it may be an image. Those are 3 areas you can always know when you're having a dream. A dream is something that I'm teaching you this morning that God gives to you that is for you. And it's what I always say, it's God's dream for you even before you know it. So many times we have ideas and we don't know what to do with them. And we just kind of sit on them. We just kind of not embrace them. Well, this morning I want to share with you that when divine spirit or divine presence gives you an idea, it's for you to use not only for the glory of God, but for the people who need what you have to offer. When I was 13 years of age, I had a vision. I absolutely saw myself standing at the podium where the minister stands, delivering a sermon. Now, for a 13-year-old in the South, in a traditional Baptist church, that was unheard of. Besides, I had never seen a woman in ministry, never even heard of a woman minister. And so I went to my minister and I said, I didn't tell him I saw myself. That would have really scared him. But I told him, within me, I didn't know how to explain it, but within me was a desire to be a minister. And he said, Barbara, come on. We're in the Baptist church. We don't have women ministers. You can't be a preacher, but you can be a missionary. I did not want to be a missionary because for the time when I was born, going to any country out of the USA was just dangerous. You just didn't want to be a missionary. Either snakes hanging from the trees or lions running through the bush. So I said, no, I don't want to be a missionary. I held to that thought. It was a good thought in me, but how I began using it, I started speaking for programs around the city, youth programs, Women's Day programs. Wherever I was called on, I would go and I would speak. I was actually ministering then and didn't even know it. So then I followed that path. And then I went on to college. When I got to college, my second year, and I remember I've been an A student, I've been active. I'm a very active person. I became ill with tuberculosis in both lungs. They told my father and my grandmother that I would not live beyond 6 months. And so they literally threw me into a sanitarium. And believe me, it was a shock for me because I wanted to finish college. I wanted to take care of my grandmother because I felt she'd done so much for me, and I wanted to be able to take care of her. So I'm in the sanitarium, and you will like this. I tried to find every way I could to get out. The social worker came to see me, and I said, I'm tall. The beds are too short. Please let me go home, and if I'm going to rest, I can rest at home. I kept it up for about a month, and she said, Barbara, I know what you're saying, but with tuberculosis, you have to stay in the sanitarium, and you have to rest. Now, resting wasn't a part of my activity either. So in all of that activity, I was still moving around, talking to everybody. And what I found out was, like many of you will find out, that I was the only one of 20-some patients in that area who had some connection to believe in God, to believe in the presence, to believe that there was something great, to believe in the Tao, to believe in spirit. Everybody else in there was just sick, dying, and had no one that they could talk to. I began being the person who went around to the beds administering words of truth and love. I remember holding one man's high hand who was dying, and I was repeating, for those of you from traditional church, you know, the 23rd Psalm. I was repeating the 23rd Psalm to him. And I didn't realize that even then the dream was being fulfilled. See, sometimes we get a dream and we're fulfilling it, we're not even aware of it. And so I stayed in the sanitarium. They gave me surgery. They went into my right lobe, my right lung, and took out, did what they call a lobectomy, took out a lobe. And when they took that out, it was supposed to help me to breathe better. Well, after that happened, I had a vision one day to turn on television. I remember I came from a southwest section of the country. I'm from Houston, Texas. We never wanted to be called Southerners, but everybody did. We call ourselves Southwesterners. We didn't want to be identified with the Southern states. And so what happened was I realized that the only people I could hear on the radio, there was no televisions, so the only people I could hear on the radio would be some minister who would be foreign to my teaching. He was also of another race because African Americans were not on the TV, not on the radio at that time. Now remember, I was born in 1930. So anyway, I heard the minister say, place your hand on the radio and you will be healed. Now remember, I'm coming out of a traditional Baptist church, so I don't know anything about putting your hand on the radio. That was just, what is he saying? I put my hand on the radio. What happened was, I realized later it was not the radio. It was an act of faith on my part to believe I could be healed. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And so a month later, a French doctor came into the ward that I was in. And he said, Barbara, come outside. I want to show you x-rays. He took me outside. Now, when they did the lobectomy, they also clipped 3 ribs. He took me outside and showed me my x-rays from the time that I entered the sanitarium to where I was at that moment. The ribs reconnected, and the rest of my lung expanded out like an entire lung. If I take an x-ray today, the only way you know that I've had tuberculosis is to see the scar on my back. Well, and then to backtrack a little bit, when I did this with the radio, somebody brought me a little booklet from a place called Unity School of Christianity. And in that booklet was a prayer. And they advised me to repeat that prayer over and over and over again until I believed it. Just as you do the mantras. Master Zhi is teaching us, we repeat it over and over. When you consciously receive it, then your subconscious gets it and you feel it, and therefore you attract it to you. Master Zhi teaches, it's the same thing we teach, but listen. The prayer went like this. God is my help in every need. God does my every hunger feed. God walks beside me, guides my way through every moment of the day. I now am wise, I now am true, patient, kind, and loving too. All things I am, can do, and be through Christ, the truth that is in me. And this is the part I didn't want to say. I'm a college, the intellect. I said, God is my health, I can't be sick. I said, how can I say that? God is my health, I can't be sick, and I'm sick. God is my strength, unfailing quick. God is my all, I know no fear, since God in love and truth are here. Well, what they were saying to me was, thank God for your healing before you even see it. So saying, God is my health, I can't be sick, was acknowledging that I knew the power of God, as we learned from Master Zhi and every master teacher. The power of God in you. You have the power to heal yourself. Have you heard that before from Master Zhi? We have the power to heal ourselves. So once I changed my thinking from believing I could not get well and go back to school, then the shift came in my consciousness, and I began to realize this is all possible. And as a follower of Jesus, the Christ teachings, he said, with God, all things are possible. So that was the backtrack. Now, they didn't want to release me from the hospital by no means, because they didn't understand how the lung could expand out, how ribs could go back together. And I didn't have to understand. I just wanted to go home. Let me call my dad and somebody come get me out of this place. I've been there 4 years. I got out of the hospital. They said, you won't live 5 years because whatever this is, they gave some technical name for it. Well, I've lived way beyond 5 years. That's when I was 19 and 20. I went back to school, finished my college work 3 years and 2 years, went from college with a bachelor's into the graduate program to be a social worker. The reason I wanted to be a social worker because the social worker was the person that was kindest to me when I was in the sanitarium. I did 2 years in a master's program and went from there to live and work in Chicago. Now listen, I have not touched the ministry. I've done social work. Have not touched the ministry. I've done social work. And finally, I met a female minister, and she was my guiding light. And this is what I did. I arranged to meet with her in her office one day. And when I went in to see her, I complained. Now that's something you don't want to be a complainer. Not when you work with a dream. I complained, oh, I grew up in the Baptist church. I wanted to be a minister when I was 13, and they wouldn't let me be a minister. They wouldn't let me. And she looked at me and she said, Barbara, what's stopping you? And that's the question for you today. With your dream, with that image, with that vision you have, what's stopping you? You see, you can't embrace all of this wonderful teaching, all of this spirituality that you're getting, and not have some ideas come up in your mind, some images, some thoughts, some visions. Because when you soak in this kind of teaching and teaching of other master teachers, it fills you to the point that you almost explode, because you suddenly realize I'm more than just somebody. Because to be a person in alignment with God means you're the best God could have. But you have to realize that God is giving you these ideas, and that's the key. We think it just crops up from somewhere. It does not. That Spirit gives us, that Tao presence, that God presence gives us the ideas for which we can pursue. Some of you may be in business, and you could tell stories about how you started your business. So to keep moving with this, so when I finally got to her and got ordained, I still didn't go into the ministry right away. And I started with a class in my living room on Wednesday nights of people who gather like we're gathering to hear my teaching. And finally one day when 60 people showed up, I knew something had to be done. So I called her. She said, always obey Spirit. Now that's one thing I'm clear on. And I'm telling you, I love Master Shaw. You need to get this. Always go inside and raise the question with yourself. What should I wear? I'm good about that. What time should I leave? I mean, I ask God everything. I don't miss even what I should eat. I can go to the dining room and see a wonderful array of food, but sometimes I don't touch certain food because my Spirit says, take this, take this, take this. Remember that guiding light in you is just so important. And when he talks about, Master Shaw talks about staying in alignment, that's true. Whatever you go to do, always get still for a minute and raise the question within yourself, because the Spirit is there and it will always guide you. And so that was what I did. And finally, after the group started meeting, I said, would anybody like to have a church? Now remember, I'm in Atlanta. The South is called the Bible Belt. Anything beyond the Bible Belt, traditional religion, is a challenge in Atlanta. And here I am talking about new thought, God and I are one, think positively, meditate. They didn't know what I was talking about. So they called us a cult. But I started with the ministry. And it was then I realized you are fulfilling your dream. Now, all along the way, there were knocks. The ministers called in that pulpit and said, don't go to Barbara King's church. If you go there, you're going to hell, because God didn't call women. If I went somewhere to speak and they didn't know I was a female, they would say Reverend B. King, and they found out B. King was Barbara, that created a problem. So when you get that dream, now I want you for a moment, just close your eyes and think about something that you have felt you wanted to do and you haven't done it. Close your eyes for a moment. It doesn't matter what it is, because there's nothing that's out of place with the God presence. Now open your eyes and write on your book what you just saw. Write it down, what that dream was, what that image was, what that vision was. Write it down for yourself so you can maintain it. Write it down. Writing is always important. Now, after you've written it down, ask yourself, answer the question, why am I afraid to try? Why am I afraid to try it? Ask yourself the question. Sometimes we think the banks, we don't have enough money. Sometimes we think Somebody will stop us. Sometimes we think because of the economy it won't work. All kind of thoughts come. So write down why you haven't tried it. That's your fear. That's the fear. Now, what can we do with the fear? Go back to what I said initially. God, the power, gives you the idea. So since it came from the power that you know of your presence, then you know it's all right. That's what you have to convince yourself of, that it's all right. I want to read a quote from Maya Angelou, and she was my friend, and so she said, courage is the most important of all the virtues. For with courage, you can't practice any other virtues consistently. She's saying that it takes courage to believe in what you put down initially. It takes courage to believe that God presence gave that to you. That's your gift. My gift as a minister is a gift, and I use it wherever I go. So whether I'm speaking, whether I'm hugging, whether I'm advising, whether I'm counseling, that is using that gift. What you wrote down the first time as your dream is God's gift to you, and you only. And if you don't use it, and it gets out into the ethers of the universe, somebody else uses it. So some of you suddenly say, I had that same idea. So remember that is your gift. Now, when you ask yourself why you're afraid to try it, that means that you don't have faith that you are a child of God, that you have the opportunity. And that's where the prosperity comes in. People think they have to have money. You have to have a consciousness to believe that God, Tao, is doing this in you and for you. That's what it takes. When you can believe what we're being taught here, what's being taught by other master teachers, if you can believe that, the mantras you're practicing, if you use a mantra when you get in trouble, when you feel like something's not going right, go back to the mantra and realize every time you say it, you are embedding, you're helping yourself to realize, I can believe this all the way. No dream is ever lost except by the person who decides not to use it. It's never lost. There's no loss. But when you realize that's yours and you accept it as yours, then you know of a fact that this is for me. I know that I'm a minister. Nobody can stop that now, because now that I've accepted it and I've done it, I'm so thankful to God that I was able to do it. So you must feel the same way about that. And then stay in prayer. Number one, stay in prayer and meditation. Use your mantras often. Go beyond this room. When you're having lunch or dinner, if you're driving, use a mantra. Keep yourself in alignment with what you believe. If you don't do that, you can't just use this setting. This goes beyond. This is in your home. This is on your workplace. I had a member who was worked for Neiman Marcus, and she was the best seller in that particular area, children's clothes. She went to work that morning. She always went into the area where the people met and had coffee, whatever, and she would say, God, thank you for all the customers you're sending today. Okay? She didn't do that morning. Nobody came in all day long, and she said, wait a minute, I did not take time to do my mantra. I did not take time to do my affirmation. And the minute she did, a lady came in and bought enough clothes that would add up her whole income for the whole day. It all depends on us. If we are willing to be embedded with what we are learning, you will be overwhelmed with all the abundance that is yours. You don't have to worry about your prosperity. When I first started the church, I didn't get a salary, but I was able to pay bills. Why? Because that indwelling guidance said, call Macy's, call American Express, and tell them what's happening. And every time I called, I got somebody on the phone that said, I'll work with you. You'll be okay. Send it when you can. Now, these are simple illustrations, but we all go through this. Finances, being healthy, all of these things we go through, worrying about this. You can't, when you know who you are and what you're getting, it stops the worrying. But it takes practice. It takes practice. It takes practice. I practice well. When I sit in that chair, I'm still practicing. I'm still saying, okay, God, open my heart. Let me hear. Let me understand. You can ask for anything that you desire because of that Tao, because of that God presence. And so when you do your prayer and your meditation, and speak positively, don't speak negatively. Be a positive person as much as you can, because words are energy. Words have power. Words are energy, and that energy flows from you into the universe. And sometimes people say, well, I don't think anybody likes me. I don't get along with people. Well, you give off that kind of energy, nobody's going to come to you. When you give off the energy of love and of peace, as much as you can, you're going to draw love and peace. Like attracts like. And so therefore, even in your dream world, as you're working with that idea, work with that image, remember that there's always people ready for you the minute you step out. I tell people all the time, when you have a dream, when you work on it, the people are already in place for you. Those people that came to Hillside were already in place. They were already waiting for some place to go to. Same thing with you. Whatever that vision is you have, the people who are supposed to support you, whether it's the bank, whether it's your family, whoever it is, they are already in place. Because that's the way the universe works. It works so that when it gives you an idea, the idea can be fulfilled in and through you. It can only be fulfilled in you. You can't give to somebody else and say, well, you do this. You have to do it yourself. So that's part of this whole business of following your dream. And I want you to take it seriously, because Master Sha's teachings will bring you prosperity, health, and then remember too, there's also an in-kind prosperity. You know what I call in-kind prosperity? When somebody takes you to dinner, you don't have to spend your money. That's in-kind prosperity. And so prosperity is not always money. It's health, it's peace of mind, it's good relationships. To be prosperous in your mind, to be peaceful, to have good relationships. And sometimes we have to let go of some people and some things. Sometimes there are people around us who we may have to release because we're not being fulfilled in their presence. But remember, whatever that dream that you wrote down, don't drop it. This is the place while you're in meditation to feast on it. And then the other thing is, go everywhere you can. If there's something like your dream, go see it. Our church was built in the round. That was my dream, a round church, so that everybody could see everybody. My platform's not elevated. You can step right off to the floor. And I kept that. So every Sunday we would send out a bulletin. We put, I see the chairs, I see the 8 seats. We put everything down we want. People said, well, why are you all doing that? Because that's not going to happen. We said, oh, yeah, because we believed it before we saw it. And that's my final word to you. Whatever your dream is, believe it before you see it. Believe it before you see it. Believe it before you see it. Know that it's God's gift for you. And use every mantra you can to back up your belief system. Because if you don't believe, it's not going to work. And everybody in this room is here by divine appointment. You're not here by accident. There are no accidents in God. Everybody here is here by divine appointment. And thank you so much. I want to give you this affirmation. Repeat after me. I let go of fear and worry. I am convinced that I can change my mind and change my world. I'm convinced that I can change my mind and I can change my world. Now for a moment, just be still. Come. Just be still for a moment. Those who are listening in, be still, and maybe some word that I said touch you to know that you are so blessed and so important to God. And that dreams, images, visions are your gift of God. And I would say, enjoy them. Enjoy them. Enjoy knowing you have something to give to the universe. Enjoy. And realize you are giving something to the world. Oh my goodness. Open your eyes and shout, saying, oh, I'm happy.